Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. In this episode, Army veteran, Sergeant Major, one of my favorite ranks in all the military because I love my Sergeant Majors. All Sergeants Major, Sergeants Major. It's a weird grammar thing. Mike Quinn, also entrepreneur extraordinaire. Mike, great to see you, man. Great to have you.
Thank you, Otis. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so glad you got the Sergeant's Major part right.
I was corrected a lot in my career by some very good sergeants major. Let me tell you, that's why I have an affinity for that rank. I had some great relationships, some great sergeants major that were just phenomenal. And you know, I think Mike, you may be one of the very few people we've had on the show where I don't even have to ask why. I could tell the why, but I'm going to ask the why because I know our listeners they may not know it, but why are you doing what you do? Because you spent 25 years in the Army serving our country, and now you're serving the veteran tribe. I mean, to just the utmost level.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I got to say, it all goes back to my transition. People look at my transition, they look at my story, they look at my LinkedIn profile and how confident I am. And they're like, oh, this guy, like it was a breeze, like he walked out, and they don't realize that you're only seeing the iceberg analogy. You're only seeing above the water piece. Mm-hmm. And I think they miss the fact that even though I found my success, the year of my transition was the hardest year of my life. Harder than Iraq, harder than Afghanistan, harder than Bosnia, Gitmo, Philippines. Like it was the hardest year of my life because I thought that as a sergeant major, Intel, TSSCI clearance, DC area, that I was going to walk out, chest stuck out. I'm here. Everybody come give me a six-figure job. And that's not the reality of it. There's some, I would say, like marketing challenges within the force about the transitioning, where people say like, oh, America's lining up to hire you. You have great jobs, six figures just waiting, everything else like that. And the stress of having a day circled on the calendar where I no longer had a job and I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And I had to pay for my family, and my retirement in DC area only covered my mortgage. So I know. So, Sergeant Major retirement's not that great either. Let's put it there too. It's beautiful, but not what you would think. And so I immediately found a way to give back, because that's what we as senior military leaders do. We're used to sharing our mistakes, our learning points, our lessons, our successes with those that follow us, so that they don't have to repeat the same mistakes, so that they can take advantage of the resources we found, so we can make it easier for them. And I started doing that, and I found it was my calling. That I understood the market, that I understood industry, that my time as an Intel professional let me understand the other side. And my time as a sergeant major helped me, be able to educate people and be rather blunt about it. So I'm matter of fact in how I engage with people. And, some people don't like it, but most are like, well, he's a sergeant major. Take it. And so all of that came together and made me so passionate about what I do.
So I'm just gonna jump in as a explanation, for Radio Land in this with Mike, just so everybody understands what a sergeant major is. So a sergeant major is the highest enlisted rank, and what's always interesting about it is that's it. And how long were you a sergeant major? 8 years, 10 years?
Yeah, about 6 years. Yeah.
So think about that in your up or out sort of world until you make sergeant major, and then you're just there. So, but it is the highest rank of the enlisted services in the Army and the Marine Corps. So sorry for that, Camden.
Oh, no problem. So Mike, I wanted to ask if you found the passion, you found the purpose, during that tough time. How did you make it into the business model? Because that's, you got the first two steps there. People can get that, I'm passionate about X, Y, Z. How do you get to turn the lights on with that though?
Yeah. So Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I did it immediately and I didn't do it immediately. So my first job out of the military, I was a director of workforce management for a small federal IT company. And I literally, everything I do has an intertwining thread of LinkedIn and the community, the network, the brand that I've built on LinkedIn. So I met the CEO of this company via LinkedIn, went in for coffee. He made me a director level role on the spot. So I found a great job that started 1 month before I was out. I got to double dip for a month. He brought me in to build a training program, help with veteran recruiting, keep up morale, hold people to standards, make sure that people are placed in the appropriate positions. I mean, I was like, you need a sergeant major. And he's like, yes. And so that was a great job for, about actually a year and 5 days. And then I went on to Ernst & Young, and I worked there for 2.25 years as a senior manager and executive in their people advisory service practice. So I have, from November 1st, 2017 to now, I've got about 3.25 years of corporate experience. Mm-hmm. Now, the business model. January of 2018, so 2 months after I get out, there was a Hiring Our Heroes corporate fellowship program that they were standing up here in the DC area. So they were doing DoD SkillBridge internships, cohort model with companies. I could say nothing, there's nothing negative about that program. They do an amazing job. They take care of all their people. They got a lot of people, great careers, training, relationships, everything else like that. But at that time, they had 30 internships and they had 90 approved candidates. So 30 people got selected and 60 people who had a dream of doing an internship before they got out suddenly don't have one. And about 5 or 6 of them were networked with me on LinkedIn and reached out to me and said, hey, Mike, I didn't get selected. What do I do? And I said, you just find a company that wants to take you and file an individual internship. And they looked at me like, I grew a horn from my head. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, and I realized that, one, companies don't even know this program exists, let alone how to navigate the application process. 2, the candidates don't know how to explain that it's not an unpaid internship under the Fair Labor Standards Act. They don't know how to explain to companies how they can manage the candidates, through their payroll process, their HR process. I mean, there just was a huge disconnect. And so as they asked me, and I went back and started doing the research on, this DoD SkillBridge program at the time, I realized that there was this huge gap between companies and candidates. And there was not an easy way for transitioning service members and companies to connect for these internship opportunities. And, the company gets somebody full-time for 3 to 4 months, and they don't pay salary, benefits, insurance during that time. It's all covered by the military. So I thought that there would be a model where they would be willing to pay for this service. I mean, companies are getting a service. They don't have any problem paying. And so that's where I came up with the idea of HireMilitary. So my idea, and we've grown since then, some work, some don't, you get it from the entrepreneurship conversations, was to create a platform, almost like a brokerage, where companies could list opportunities and, I want SkillBridge interns in these roles. And service members could put their profiles up. And if a company clicks on a service member or a service member clicks on a company, they interview. And if they decide to go forward, we sponsor the company and file all the paperwork for a fee. And did a little bit of research, talked to a bunch of people and said, I'm going to do this. There's a gap, I'm going to fill it. And so a lot of people don't realize this. I then proceeded to spend every cent of savings I had to build a platform. I had the belief, I had, built what I thought was a decent business plan. I did some market research. I had mentors teach me how to set up a business. to go, incorporate state of Delaware, LLC, get your business insurance, all the things, EINs, everything else, QuickBooks, like they set me up. And then I had to take the risk. And I think that's the thing that separates entrepreneurs from other people. Like literally, I needed to pay someone to not just build a website, but we had to build the back end website that allows you, and I had to design that, because I couldn't pay someone to do that. And I had to go in and everything from like in the beginning, I had to go find the photos and I had to help them map out I never did any of that stuff. And then I had to talk to them about the requirements of the website and go back and forth. And so that was where it started. And I was doing that while working a full-time job. And then over the course of that 3 years, we just kept expanding it. I brought on some 1099 consultants that were helping with placements because there wasn't enough revenue coming in at first. And I didn't want to give up a huge chunk of the company to get that operating capital. So I brought in 1099 consultants to start that up. And then by December 23rd of last year, EY shifted to an unlimited vacation policy, which is amazing in concept. Mm-hmm. But what it means is that when they make that shift, any banked leave you lose at a certain point. So I had, in typical Sergeant Major fashion, I had not taken leave. So I had 6 weeks of saved leave. I was planning on staying at EY for another 6 months or so, just to help out with some stuff. But I was like, I don't want to give up 6 weeks of salary. So HireMilitary and my parent company actual company name is Tenova. I had accrued enough business that I had my salary covered for an entire year. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, December 23rd, I left EY. Focused 100% of my energy, which is the difference maker when you can focus on your business. And in this past year, we've hired 20 employees and our business has just gone through the roof while setting the foundation for a real business. So payroll systems, insurance, monitors, computers, Microsoft Teams, like all that stuff. I'm sure you guys, so really, really long story, but that'll give you the foundation of where I got today.
One thing that I just really love there, and sorry, Dad, I know I cut you off, that it's the thing that I love about entrepreneurship to me, because I'm a little bit of an econ nerd, and what you were doing is you're covering a market failure. And to me, those are the best business models, where it's like, there's a supply of this, there's a demand for it, but it's like, for whatever reason, it's just not working. Mm-hmm. And you doing that by connecting that supply of labor of these veterans who are looking to transition, they have all these skills, and then connecting that to demand. It's one of those where I just have to clap for you there, because that's like my favorite kind of business model, where it's like, gosh, that makes so much sense. You just got to connect those two dots, and you can do amazing things when you look at those type of market failures, those weird gaps that you see in all sorts of industries. When you think about connecting them with a business, that's how you get a really cool business model.
No, yeah, absolutely. It was the great foot in the door.
Yeah, well, and there's so many thoughts to chase the rabbits on in this case, but one of the ones I want to jump on, at least right now, is that feeling when you stepped away from EY. What was your confidence level? 1 to 10, 10 being bam, I know this is a home run, and you were already in that mode, huh?
12.
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, so I had an advantage. Mm-hmm. I had an advantage at that point. Not only was it the business, I have speaking engagements, I have other things, and I have this huge brand on LinkedIn. So, I mean, I knew so one, I was confident, if the fact that I already had my salary for a year covered is huge. And two, I knew that I could go get work if I needed it. I had enough of a brand. I had enough relationships, and that's the underpinning of everything. Aside from the market failure, fixing the market failure, you also need to be able to get clients. And a huge part of that, there are other companies that do SkillBridge. There are other companies that do veteran hiring. Why do they choose you? And, one thing I learned at EY was we buy from whom we trust, right? And trust comes from relationships. And because I had this huge brand, at the time I probably had, 250,000 followers or so on LinkedIn. I had a level of confidence, and I had that I would at least be able to cover what I needed for the next several years. And it was just a matter of surrounding myself with the right people to truly grow the business. And I think that's the other part that people miss. Like, it's not just you have an idea, you have a business. If you don't surround yourself with the people that fill your gaps, if you don't identify your gaps and then surround yourself with people that are smarter than you about those gaps or better than you on those gaps, then your business is doomed as well. And then just, I have a growth mindset. So there's opportunity. My biggest challenge right now is not chasing every opportunity. It's not burning out my team. It's trusting my people to say, let's wait a few months. Let's get through these things, because my brain is wired to see those gaps, and those gaps come to me in the form of opportunities or conversations with people that, I've built relationships or they have trust in me because of this brand have come up. So sorry, I know I just took that in a different direction, but hit me. Let's go.
No, that's perfect. And I love the story, and it actually made me think of something, a different reflection in this. So what's harder, sergeant major, battalion sergeant major, or CEO entrepreneur?
CEO, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Without a doubt.
Why is that?
So as a sergeant major, I'm gonna be very blunt. You don't have to deal with money as a sergeant major.
Sure.
You have unlimited resources. You know what you have. You can work them as much as you want. You know all the rules. You know the community. The military is great at building the structure around you. That once you've hit the rank of sergeant major, you know exactly what it takes to be successful. You are a subject matter expert in your field. You've led at every level necessary to get you. Not only led at every level, you were often the best in your organization at every level. You were the best first sergeant. You were the best platoon. Like, you've got all these assignments. So the time you're a sergeant major, you know exactly what it takes. And if something doesn't quite hit standard, everybody still gets a paycheck, right? Everybody still has benefits. Everybody has. Whereas in the private sector, if you set goals and assume risk and you don't meet those goals, somebody's getting let go. Somebody's family's not getting paychecks. Someone like you're affecting families in a way that is, that significantly impacts their ability to live. When you talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's there. So I'm going to say, and this is going to hurt the feelings of a lot of senior military leaders. I had this conversation with my business partner about a month and a half ago. You have to learn to be dynamic in the private sector. And because my business partner, we had some struggles dealing with some senior military leaders, and she's like, she never served, but it's been around the military, says, doesn't the military create dynamic leaders? And I was like, and then I stopped. I'm like, no, they don't. You've got it's your boss. It starts from the chief of staff of the Army all the way down. There's a structure. If you're the battalion, your brigade commander is telling you what to do. Your commander what to do. Your brigade CSM is giving you advice on their, like, you could be dynamic in the moment to accomplish one specific mission. Like if you're in combat, you could be dynamic to react within the constructs of everything. But what I found at EY, what I found at ProSphere, and what I found in my company is that in the private sector, there's much more gray space. Meaning, here's your job. go do it. Oh, what do you mean? Like, and without that structure, some people struggle until they can learn to just go ahead and operate or learn to go ask. My God, like I remember at EY, I spent 12 hours on their online system searching for data that I needed. And then I was like, I can't find it. I called a partner and he goes, oh, sure, Mike, here it is. I'll send it to you. And I was like, I'm not searching that online system ever again. Like, I'm just going to call people. So again, I'm all over the place this morning, but CEO is definitely harder. It is equally rewarding. I love being a sergeant major. I love taking care of soldiers. Here, I get to take care of families. I get to work with my team to build the right culture. I get to choose the direction. And if I do it well, I can make a heck of a lot more money than I made as a sergeant major. So, you know, that's what I would say the answer to that question.
Well, I just got to throw in, you know, when you talked about that lack of being able to be dynamic, one of my favorite bosses, Charlie Cleveland, when he took over group, I remember we were both in Stuttgart at the same time, and just happened the longer story I won't go into, but just ended up being that the colonel and, you know, I was a battalion 3 at the time, the major were the only 2 left, and I had a car, so I needed to drive him back to where we were staying. He wasn't too happy, but you know, I'd known him for quite a while already, and I asked him as we're driving down the road, and I said, "Hey, sir, so is this the best job ever? I mean, what's been your best job?" And he said, "I have less freedom and less ability to control my schedule now as he's the commander of a special operations group." Mm-hmm. I mean, what is that, like I think nowadays it's about 4,000 guys. And he said, "I don't control my schedule. I'm told when to be there, how to be there, what to do, and who to do it with." I had more freedom as a company commander, you know, 10 years, it was about 10 years for him, I think, in that gap. And it's so true. You know, you're told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Yeah, there's those little spaces. But when you leave the military, and this is one of the things that, you know, when I'm coaching those guys that are transitioning out, I try to, you know, instill on them, you got to have a routine, because there ain't no routine. There ain't no 6:30 PT formation. There ain't no 11:30, we're all going to go to the mess hall. None of that exists anymore. So you got to create your routine. And I love the way that you're looking at and the way you approach that, because you set that up, you set that culture for your team, and you lead them that way. That's exciting to be able to do, and be able to not only look at it that way, but see it, you know, and see that you're making a difference for not only people that you're serving as a business, but people in your team. Mm-hmm. And I just, well done, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
You know, there's one I want to throw out for both of y'all, because you have more experience with the Army structure, and you know, it seems like one of those things, and maybe I'm just, you know, I like compromise or something like that, but I'm like, there's got to be a sweet spot there, because the structure is nice. You know, what it immediately made me think of is assistant coaching in my rugby life is the coolest job ever, because I just show up and I coach rugby. Like, some kid comes up to me, he's like, "Hey coach, when does the bus leave?" That's an Otis question. Get out of here. Like, you want to learn how to pass the ball? I can tell you how to pass the ball. It's the cushiest job ever. It's so much fun because you just do that. You have all the structure around you. Mm-hmm. And so you lose the dynamic aspect, like y'all are saying, but then also you get to fully focus on the task at hand. So I can kind of see that balance there. But then, of course, if you have too much structure, you're going to lose your flexibility, and you're not going to be able to adjust to, you know, all the things that are coming. So I want to throw that out to both of y'all. What's that sweet spot look like? Or do you think there shouldn't be a sweet spot? It should go one way or the other.
So I think it's dependent upon industry. I definitely don't. I like the military structure is designed for decisive impact, meaning, you know, like everything from the way we communicate, you know, no fluff. Hey, need you to do this, or can you do this, or whatever, to, you know, getting decisions at the combatant command level down to that platoon on the ground. It's designed specifically to allow commanders to make decisions quickly, and then the tip of the spear just does it without any kind of thought, we're going to do this because we understand the structure is building everything behind it to reinforce those actions. Mm-hmm. In the private sector, there's so much more flexibility, right? Very rarely do you have a job, especially at the level where many of us want to be, where you're right? I mean,
pull the lever.
Yeah, right. You get what I'm talking about. So, and I think that there's a challenge, especially when you talk to a lot of the people that I communicate with in the LinkedIn audience, the mid-level, enlisted leadership, the captains and above, that are looking for these professional opportunities. The expectation is when you come to a job that you already know how to do the job, not that we're going to train you to do it, right? And that when you submit that application, it says you meet all this criteria, that you actually meet all that criteria, and that you can come in and do the job and that you'll ask for support when you need it. So, I think that there is a balance somewhere, there needs to be management controls. So, you need to set the right meeting structure up so that you're having your touch points, that you're collecting the metrics that you want. And that's something we've been working on all year to make sure we're doing this the right way. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to overstructure it like you do in the military, because time is money and they have a job. I'm going to give you one great example. When we show up for meetings in the military, if you show up 5 minutes prior to an important meeting, you're late, right? Mm. And if we talk about going to an event, say you're doing an organizational run, and they want the commander says we're starting at a brigade level. Brigade commander says we're starting at 6:30 a.m. So the battalion says I want everybody there at 6:20. And the company, because he's got to say they're all there and they're ready. And then the company says we want everybody there at 6:10, because they got to be able to make sure everyone's there if you're going to be late, but they're all there in time for, the battalion. And then the platoons all say, we want you there at 6, right? And you can laugh and all that, but this is really, so now you've got a bunch of soldiers, in my experience, show up at 6 a.m. for a 6:30 run, and they're sitting there waiting. That will not fly in the private sector. I just lost 30 minutes of productivity. You could have been doing something else. What could you have accomplished in that time? And so at the very least, that could have been time back for you to go spend time with your family, so that you're more productive later in the day. And so I think that you've got to find that right balance. I tell my team, your meeting's at 6:30, that's when we start. Show up. If you want to show up early, 6:28, whatever, that's fine. If you show up at 6:30, fine. Don't show up at 6:20. Don't show up at 6:15, right? And that's hard. So you've got to find the right balance for your organization. And I've found that depending on the size of the organization, larger organizations need more structure. Smaller organizations, you can focus on hiring right people and just make sure you're collecting what you need to enforce that.
Yeah, that is, one of my biggest hurdles that I had to get over after I retired was don't show up at the coffee shop that you're meeting somebody at 15 minutes early, because when they're 2 minutes late, you're pissed off. I mean, I lived that one for a number of years. It took me a long time to figure that one out. But back to the structure thing that you asked, Camden. Yeah, my philosophy of that is we crave routine, because our personal routine is our personal system, and without a system, you can't improve it. Just like we do, in the business side, we create those systems so that we can create efficiencies. As an individual, if you're in that random mode, and I always love this, the person who says, well, I don't believe in structure, I don't believe in that. And it's well, today is Tuesday, do you believe that today is Tuesday and you're here to work because today is a Tuesday and not a Saturday? Oh, well, because you know what? We all have to have some sort of structure in our life. And that's the way I look at it. If you're just wandering out in the woods, that's a whole nother world, right? You're not working for an organization or running a business or providing a service or making a product, because if you're just willy-nilly in it, wow, there's a funny phrase.
I like it.
Willy-nilly in it, good luck. You'll get it right one time, and then the rest of the time it'll just be, it's the even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while sort of thing. So, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to take something off of what you just said.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? What are you accomplishing? And how does that tie to revenue? Like, that's a whole nother point that I think a lot of us fail to see. I remember in the Army, I had a staff sergeant that did not want to make sergeant first class, that just came in and did the minimum every day and was riding it out till 20. And you can do that in the military because, I wasn't paying his paycheck, right? When you get out in the private sector, you've got to realize that the company has to see value in your role that aligns with your salary plus 32%. And that's a low end overhead. So if someone's making 50, then, they got to bring in at least $66,000 worth of value for it to not mean that I'm losing money, like money's coming out of my bank account to pay it. And we have had some challenges where, our military, our veterans that came out were like, well, they're a great person. And, they're trying really hard. And I had to say, well, they've already lost $70,000. Where does that money come from? Like, that's what they've cost us. And the revenue back in is this. Like, that money has to come from somewhere. And that's when you have to learn that there is a different way to lead. And that sometimes when you have a business, you have to make hard decisions, even though they're a great person. And that ideally, if you see them going down that path, they don't get the same leash that you get in the military. You address that early and you figure out what you can do to support them so that they can turn it around, or they understand that these challenges are there. And that's a whole nother side of the military. When you talk about understanding your value, and why I tell a lot of people to go into sales is because if you at least can either get a sell, or you understand how your role directly impacts revenue, and you are bringing in revenue in excess of what you cost a company, and you understand that, you're forever safe.
Oh, that's a huge lesson. I harp on guys about that too. I tell them just use the rule of three. And if you're making 50, you better be bringing in 150 in revenue. I mean, that's just simple math like that. And by the way, I commend you for doing public math like you just did. Well done, Mike. You see how I keep mine simple, 3, just times 3. Not getting in on percentages. Yeah. You know what? Man, I'm just thinking, sorry for my audio pause there, because I'm thinking you are, I'm pretty sure you're our first sergeant major. And that's, I've already mentioned about that, how it's my favorite rank in the military. But what it leads me to really want to ask, one of my favorite questions is, what's that one lesson from your career that you hold, you go back to like daily now?
For like from being a sergeant major?
Just any point in your career, whether it was as a sergeant major or even when you were a young private.
That's a tough one. So I would say that the one that I had to learn, if I'm going to be honest, up until I was a first sergeant, I micromanaged the crap out of my teams. Like whenever I was like, I was all like, I was supportive. I cared about my people. I took care of my people, but I was all up in their business. And the same thing, you know, when I was a first sergeant, like I was very directive and meetings and everything else like that, because I could keep my arms around everything. Like I still, like I could track everything in my brain. And then I remember I got to my battalion. And that first year, I did the same thing. I was in everybody's business. I was tracking everything. And we quadrupled production in that first year, like literally 4 times the previous leadership. But my workday kept getting longer and longer and longer because I was so much in everybody else's business that it got to a point where we'll just let Sergeant Major do it. Like we'll just, you know, yeah. I mean, I remember talking to one of my sergeants, like I showed up at PT, half of them were just standing around. They were playing volleyball, which is like, let's get the Sergeant Major angry to start off. Like you're going to play volleyball and half of you are going to stand there. Like, that's just like, that's almost as bad as walking on the grass, you know? And so I said, well, here's the deal. I'm getting in and the losing team's running 10 laps. And I talked to the sergeant major, to the sergeant. I said, hey, sergeant, you know, hey, how's that? You know, what do you think? He's like, you know, honestly, sergeant major, you know, if we're going to be completely honest, the moment you showed up, we all just said, well, sergeant major's in charge. And I remember talking to my brigade CSM, a mentor of mine, about that challenge, that I had this challenge where I had the experience, I had the background, and I saw people, you know, like doing something I know was going to fail. And I couldn't figure out whether I should jump in and fix it, like, hey, whoa, stop, or whether I should let them fail so they learn. And I remember my brigade CSM at the time saying, neither. I'm like, what? He's like, listen here, Sergeant Major. He goes, you are the best first sergeant in the entire brigade, which is not a positive thing to say.
Yeah.
And he said, when something's wrong in your organization, do I call your first sergeants and tell them to fix their stuff, or the platoon sergeants, or whatever? He's like, no, I call you. He's like, so when you go to events and you see something wrong, you find something good about that they're doing. Even it's like, hey, great to see everybody's out here for training. The training might have stunk, but you tell everybody, hey, everybody, you know, love that you're all out here for training, you're engaged. He's like, and then afterwards, you tell that leader, hey, you need to fix this. You're first sergeant, right? This is what's wrong. You need to fix it, because if you don't do that, you go down a level, no one feels comfortable talking to you anymore. And they're not showing initiative and everything else like that. And then if the first sergeant can't do it, then you fire the first sergeant and get a new one that can, you know, like, but you can't be the bad guy and down in everybody's business because they'll stop working. Mm-hmm. And it made me realize that I have micromanagement tendencies. And so I make it a point to not go down that low in my business unless I'm needed or unless they ask. And I work together with my senior leadership team to, you know, talk to them about it and, you know, kind of let them take the lead on a lot of stuff, or tell me what needs to be done because they're smarter than me. And so, end of the story, my second year as a sergeant major, production kept going to that level. Morale went up. Mm-hmm. People were happy. It didn't impact, like there was no negatives, and my job got easier and I was happier, right? And it taught me how to become a strategic leader. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times we have trouble. Nobody teaches you how, like you've got the individual contributor, you've got the small team, you got the mid-sized team, even in private sector. You know, you can go from, you know, a senior consultant to a manager, to a senior manager, director, partner, and they all have different roles and responsibilities. They all have different requirements, expectations, everything else like that. When you first make that jump, you need to be able to learn. and be open to changing your style. And so I thank God so much that I went through that experience at my battalion, because the rest of my time in the Army became so much easier. I became so much more effective as a leader. And without it, like in the private sector, if I'm all in my people's stuff, they're going to quit. They're going to leave. My business would have failed had I not learned that lesson. So I would say that's the biggest thing, that truly learning how to become a strategic leader, how to focus on the things that are important to me, and how to empower the people around me to do what they need to do, and trust them that I hired the right people to do that job. Sorry, I'm like really long conversations.
No.
Today. You asked
Passion,
great questions.
man, passion.
Well, what I was going to say was this, and I know I'm jumping ahead of you a little bit here, Dad, but that set me up right into what I learned today, which is in my notes of when we were talking about structure and the benefits on either side.
Listen to. He's taking the pebble from my hand, is what he's doing.
It's finally happened.
Go ahead. Lead us into it, Camden.
So when you talk about when we were talking about structure earlier, it's you wanted some form of structure so that people have things to work around. You have to have some level of structure, but then also if you have too much structure, you lose the creativity. And what it brought me back to is teaching the whys behind actions, and that way that people can make their own decisions, and you're teaching them the decision-making process, not telling them what to do, but teaching them, you have these 5 options, go pick one, and then letting them fail on that, letting them see those different things. And then when you bring shoot, I lost it. You broke my focus, Dad. But we know, bringing that all back, it's then when you allow people to have that kind of autonomy, they're going to enjoy, they're going to stay with your business longer. They're going to have that creative energy inside their work so that they can find ways to optimize things that you're doing. And they're going to enjoy their job a lot better. And it makes your job as a leader a lot easier because, and I'm obviously pulling this from rugby. I know you see it, Dad, but it's like going through the film and you pause it and go, okay, what were you thinking here? And it's always this, well, coach, I thought bang. And you go, okay, well, do you see how these things are different? And then they move on and they let it go again. And it allows you to step back as a leader and let them go through that decision-making process. And then that's how you, especially business-wise, because I've tried to use this in my businesses as well. That's how you create an organizational structure to where people have their own autonomy and feel comfortable being leaders inside their own small groups. And if you can do that inside a company, you can go really freaking far.
Yes. If I can add one piece to that,
please.
It's empowering and encouraging people to create processes. That's been another challenge. Like, this needs to be done, and they're waiting for someone to tell them what needs to be done. And we're like, no, create a process. Tell us what the business process needs to be, especially as an entrepreneur, since we're still building all this stuff. So when you have a client that comes in and says, I want 200 veterans or military spouses, what's the process for that? What do you need for a team to make that happen? Do we need to hire new people? How do we place them? Do we have the marketing, assets to be able to get it to the right audience? Do we have the website set up so that it optimizes it so that when someone can easily click to apply, like all these things behind it? So yeah, that's the next step, is getting, and not everybody's comfortable creating processes, but getting them to realize we want you to create processes instead of saying, what do I do? Is the next step. And it all comes down to the most expensive thing in a business is what? People. And the most important thing for a business is people. You hit it right there. If they feel invested, they understand the why, they love the model, they're going to do whatever it takes. And I can honestly say, I don't ask my team to work more than 40 hours a week, but I know darn sure that many of them are, because they care about the mission, right? They care about what they're doing, the success, everything else like that. And if you hire the right people and you empower them and you trust them, then, and you build the structure that allows them to be successful, not worry about a paycheck and all the other stuff, then they will take care of the mission.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. I know I see Otis ready to go. And
What
I'm
did you
good
learn
for
today,
I'm good
Dad?
for another 15 minutes. We
Oh,
don't have
okay,
to,
okay.
we don't have
Good.
to cut it short.
All right. Well,
Okay.
no, that's great, Mike. And just to continue on, since Camden started us with our what'd you learn? Yeah, that's yep. So I'll just say mine was and I love the little reminder of we buy from people who we trust, right? I mean, that's in the end, you know, I always use the gallon of milk as the example. If I don't believe the gallon of milk that I'm getting from the Walmart is good, I'm not going to go to the Walmart. I'm going to go to the King Soopers. I'm going to go to the Safeway. If I don't trust them to provide me a quality gallon of milk, I ain't buying it from them. I'm going to go buy it from somebody else. So it's so foundational in everything we do. And I mean, from the gallon of milk to coaching to hiring the right person. And you know, because when you hire that person, they've got to trust that you're going to take care of them too. You know, that two-way street of that trust. So Mike, what'd you learn?
I mean, so far, I've really loved hearing Cam's economic descriptions of decision making and everything else like that. And then I learned that other people know how to call us sergeants major, which is incredible. But if I can I pivot a little bit here?
Please.
From the, I want to talk about, you guys got me on this entrepreneur discussion. I want to talk about some other things that I've learned in business so far, you know. So I'm 4 years in. So yeah, just about 4 years in. And this year is the first year we made money. So a lot of people don't realize that. And you hear it typically takes about 3 years. So that's one thing. But in order to do that, I needed to pivot off of the original business model. So I started HireMilitary as, you know, DoD SkillBridge only. And then I realized, you know, early last year, like spring of this year, actually, that the market was crowded, that they had approved like 900 other SkillBridge providers. There were nonprofits doing it. There were people giving advice for free. And that when the market gets so crowded, it's hard to maintain that brand and market share. And then I looked at, you know, with the pandemic, you know, the hiring challenges companies were facing, the unemployment challenges, you know, people sitting on unemployment. And I said, well, I know veterans don't want to be on unemployment. Veterans want to work. I know spouses don't want to be on unemployment. Spouses want to work. And I said, it's crazy for me to have this brand and only help a small fraction, typically 10% of the transitioning service member population. And I'll take it a step further. I looked at the amount of work that was going into place someone in a DoD SkillBridge internship and what I charged, and the model no longer made sense, right? So when I built the model, it was companies are going to post jobs, service members are going to post, you know, and companies are going to take the effort to go do the research, find the candidates and everything else like that. And what I found was that companies don't want to do that. They want it done for them. And so I brought people on to do it for them. I hired people to do it for them. And I realized that the financial model no longer made sense. So we had to raise our prices, which means going back and looking at contracts, redoing contracts, hard conversations. So I needed to bring in a BD person to really handle a lot of, and then we had our meeting and I said, no, wait, you know, there's like 22 million veterans and out in the country, and we're servicing, what is the population we're helping? Maybe like 20,000 a year. Like, and we're only helping a small fraction of the companies out there. So we had to pivot our model to direct placement and temp to perm. And our fee structure pivoted to an 18% model for both. And so we still have some legacies that we're working through that, but because we realized that we would still, as fully remote, we didn't have the overhead of the larger companies.
Mhm.
So we didn't have to charge the 25% that a lot of the staffing companies are charging, that we still made a decent profit on the 18%. And it was a fair rate, and it's still aligned with our mission. Like, we're not out there trying to fleece people. And that companies, I haven't had any company blink an eye at that rate. Companies expect to pay for service as long as they're getting the quality service. So we had to pivot to that financial model, and it has been the game changer. That's what allowed us to significantly grow. We brought in a lot more revenue. We've brought in a lot more companies. But then we realized that, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go through this thought process with you.
Yeah.
We were, up until that point, we were only getting the companies that came to us. We had a lot of companies come to us. So blessed to have 300,000 followers in HireMilitary. I have like 311,000 on my page. We have this incredible brand. So we built this trust. Companies were coming to us like, hey, how do we get more veterans? But a lot of them were roles that we had trouble filling. Right? A lot of them wanted entry-level manufacturing talent, CDLs, like those people aren't on LinkedIn. And so we realized that, we could get consultants, project managers, operations supervisors, logistics professionals, other stuff, but we needed a mechanized mechanism to go out and find them. So we brought in a VP of growth to strategically shape this, that already had the relationships, the community, that had the sales background, to go out and find the right companies. And that's already paid itself back 10 times. And not only that, that sales background enabled him to train our staff to do sales. So I'm just saying, like, as we go through that, and then we had companies in the government sector that I already knew this was coming based on my consulting time. Like, you got to understand, I'm a service disabled veteran. So we got service disabled veteran owned small business, CVE certified by the VA as a service disabled veteran owned small business, so that we can work in the government sector. Large companies have vendor diversity requirements, that they need a certain percentage of their contracts for them to be able to continue to work with the VA and other government agencies that have to go to diverse vendors. And so we had to get set up to do all of that. So we had to get set up with the Small Business Association and all the other processes. We had to build the contracting structure and the relationships that we've now gotten grants and contracts with government agencies. And then the last part, when we talk about, I'm going to go back around to Cam's idea on seeing a gap and filling it. I saw organizations building credentials, like credentialing bodies, that made zero sense to me. And I don't want to get into names, but I was like, why in the world would it's like, those names don't make sense? The product doesn't make sense. Like, you're building a credentialing program that service members are using their credentialing assistance funds to attend, and it's not even making them better for future employment. It's just like a worthless certificate. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to somebody, I'm like, well, this is crap. Like, if they can do that, why don't I create one for LinkedIn? And they said, well, you probably should. And so I spent 6 months and, $80,000 to $100,000 to create a credentialing program for LinkedIn called the Digital Networking Professional Program. We've had, I think last year we had about 150 soldiers go through it at no cost to them. Right? So we take them through, we sign them a coach. They go through a 4-module, 4-week class where they get 1 to 2 hours of online instruction. I hired curriculum developers to take all the things I've been teaching for the last several years and have it make sense. So they get a workbook, they get a certified coach that works with them. We have proctors that hold the exams. We got it all put through to, it's NCCA standards. We went all through the DoD cool process. We got certified as an Army training vendor, and we were able to make that work. And then because we started doing that and we built this training model, now I'm out there right now training a multi-billion-dollar company how to use LinkedIn. not only from a personal standpoint, from their executives, from their social media teams, but also from their company, because I have a company of 20 people that has 300,000 followers on LinkedIn and never spent a cent on promotions, advertising. So it's another gap, Cam. But again, I'm going to go back to this. I saw a gap. I said, I'm going to do this. And then I invested 6 figures to do it. There's the risk, the entrepreneur risk. And it's paid itself back in spades, but you've got to have that confidence and do that research and be willing to stick yourself out there and take a loss to make it happen. So sorry, I did not say 15 more minutes so I can talk.
Well, I just want to add, because I think the amazing thing there, you're talking about these different pivots and recognizing those gaps. But I noticed as you went through the story, for each one of those, there was the research. For each one of those, there was checking with your team. For each one of those, there was all of these little checks and balances. Because when people think about the risk of entrepreneurship, it's, there's the gap. Okay, jump through it. If you can, the more calculations you could do on this side before you jump through that gap, the better time you're going to have once you start jumping.
And if we go back to LinkedIn, you've got to have the market. Mm-hmm. There's other people that teach LinkedIn. What makes people come to me? Trust. Right? Relationships and trust. Yeah. So you could have the what you think is a great product, but there are a ton of other people. Like when I was at EY, they said, hey, there are other firms that do this, that have this exact same service offering. And they can do it for the same price or cheaper. What makes someone choose EY? And it is trust in the EY brand, that you are going to get EY quality work with everything you do, right? And that's something I took away from there, is to make sure that my company does the same thing. So, you can do the research, you can build the product. Do you have the market? And do you have the relationships and trust to build said market that you can go to? Like, what is your go-to-market strategy? How are you going to get this out there, get people buying it, get people interested? Even for the Army aspect, how did I get 150 soldiers to not only sign up to use a portion of their credentialing assistance to attend it? You've got to have access to that market. So,
well, I'm going to add one more thing in there, and this is the mistake that I've seen so many entrepreneurs make, and you learned it as a young sergeant major, is you can't work in the business. Because if you were working in the business, if you were micromanaging the last 4 years, you would never have seen these gaps, because all you'd be worrying about is that thing down there, that whatever that is, 2 levels, at least 2 levels below where you should be looking. But instead you're looking up and out, as the CEO should. And I'm interested to know, and I just like, yeah, good.
It's because you were trying not to say curious. That's a bad word here, Mike.
I did. I bounced off of it. That's our don't say phrase, because we used it way too much. But I am. Do you take time, set aside time to focus on thinking on your business?
No.
Okay.
And yes. So my brain never shuts off. So the best time that I get for content ideas for posts and everything else comes when I get the chance to go ride my bike, when I get to disconnect. So if I go out on like a 1-hour bike ride on the trail, where I don't have to worry about cars, I don't have to worry about whatever, like that is my best. Like, ideas will come to me during that. A lot of, for me, where the ideas come, where the inspiration comes, is engagement, conversations, talking to people, being interested in what they do, what they see, what their challenges are, and seeing opportunity from there. And I think I will share with everyone is that I am not a creative. I mean, I create posts every morning. I do not have incredible ideas. I'm not the first to do anything. But what I do see is through my engagement, I see things, ways to make things better, a different model, something that, like other people have done training, other people had training programs, other people had credentials. I realized that no one had a LinkedIn one, right? And I did it. And it's the same thing, like other companies did DoD SkillBridge, and they did the cohort model. My model was, you don't do a cohort, that you're 5 days a week working for a company, that you're doing an actual job, and that you're building a relationship with a hiring manager that will lead to a hiring action. And we had 92% of our people last year got jobs out of their internships. So I just got lost on a sidetrack. But what was the question again?
I'm not sure. I was going to say 92%. That is an awesome success rate.
Yeah.
That's what I latched on to right there. I was like, woo.
Oh, I was thinking on your business. Do you set aside that time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I work too much. And I have 2 small kids 50% of the time. So like the rest of the time I'm with them. And I, like most veterans, I have sleep issues. So at least most retirees. So I have a lot of time to really just think about stuff. And I spend a lot of time on the news. I don't read books. I spend a lot of time consuming content. So I spend a lot of time on different news channels because I don't trust any of them to tell the truth fully. So I look at them all so I can figure out what the truth is out there, because everybody's got agendas. And as an intel professional, I'm always trying to figure out what the other side's thinking. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of time consuming content. I spend a lot of time in conversations, and that talking to people fills my cup. And then when I have alone time, that's my processing, and it's running in the background that gives me the ideas. But the exercise is absolutely key. Like the bike riding, the going to the gym, to doing something to stay physically healthy allows me to maintain the pace and the mental health that I need to be successful and happy. Mm-hmm. And I think the last part I'll say on that is a lot of people, I'm going to be Sergeant Major blunt on this.
Let's go.
I see all these coaches saying, like, I see this crap out there, like this work-life balance stuff, like don't work too hard, don't do, whatever. Look, if I put in a 40-hour work week, I would not be where I am today, right? And I have other goals, right? I want to retire in 5 years with a lot of money and not have to work, or 10 years or whatever, depending on how things go. So I can't just work a 40-hour work week. And when you hear people talk about this idea of work-life balance, that concept has different means to everyone. People have to figure out what their priorities are, where they want to be, and what their timeline is, and what they're willing. So what I will say is that I am blessed, truly blessed, that my work aligns with my passion, right? So that in my role, I am creating opportunities for my community. I'm training my community. And I'm hiring people that love serving our community. And so my work-life balance is exactly where it needs to be because I love what I do. And so I would say that, people need to figure out what that is for them, and don't tell others what's right or wrong, right? Because if you're, already wealthy and you already found your success and you say, well, go, like you don't see Elon Musk telling people to find their work-life balance, right? Only work right. 40 hours a week. Like that dude's not only working 40 hours a week. And you don't see Jeff Bezos doing it when he was at Amazon, so now his schedule's probably a little different. So anyway, that's.
Oh, well, Mike, you hit on something that's, part of our philosophy with Tribe and Purpose is there is no work-life balance. It's all life. It's managed, and that's what you were touching on. You You don't just have work, and you don't just have this other thing that you call life. It's all life. So how do you manage that? And, and depending on where you are in life and what's going on, your seasons of life and all these different philosophies and ways of looking at things, you might need to be working 70 hours a week. You might need to be pulling that in, or you might be in that space where you're, putting in 20 hours, or if you're lucky and you set yourself up right, like you've done, like I've done, and what you do fills you up. It's part of your life, and it fulfills you. And that's exciting. Do you look at the clock? No, I don't look at the clock. Well, I do when we're doing a podcast.
I need meetings. So like the clock looks at me and says 15 minutes prior, you got this meeting or whatever. But you're right. I know Cam's got something. I got to jump in and say the other side of it real quick. I had a sergeant major buddy, fantastic leader, fantastic professional, tell me he got a job, Fortune 100 company, like senior recruiting, like senior recruiter role. He came in, and he hit the ground running. And he worked like he was working as a sergeant major, because as a sergeant major, you don't work a 40-hour work week. Your clock's always on. And I remember having this conversation, like 6 months in, he's like, I had a conversation like right after he started. And then a few months later, we stayed in touch. And he said, listen up, Mike. He goes, things are great. What he had to realize is that he jumped in as a sergeant major schedule, and was significantly outproducing everyone else on his team. He was, quadruple the production of everyone else in his team. And he was working 60 hours, 70 hours a week, sergeant major hours. And he said he had to realize, hold up now, I'm not getting paid to work 60, 70 hours a week, right? And if I throttle it down to those 40 hours a week, I have quality of life, and I'm still out producing all those other ones. And he's like, and I'm at home. So I just my office is 5 minutes down the hall, not even 5 minutes down the hall. That's a big house, but you get what I'm saying.
It's a really big house.
It's down the hall. He's like, I put on my slippers and I go down the hall and I work and I set my own schedule. And he's like, honestly, I might not even have to work 40 hours and still outproduce everybody else, because I've built this system, and I'm good at what I do. And he's like, I'm happy. And he even said, they want to promote him. He throttled it down, and they wanted to promote him 6 months into a much higher role. And he was like, hold up, I'm happy in life right now. Let me do this for a year, and then let's talk. And now a year has passed, and he got promoted again, and he took it. But, so there's that other side of, if they're paying you for 40 and you're already doing a great job at 40, you don't have to make them all that extra money. You can throttle it back as well. So I'm sorry.
No, it's the dollar. You have to be aware of that. That is such a great lesson.
You've got to align value with compensation.
And I think, what I was going to add, kind of put a bow on this, is, when you're thinking long-term, you're thinking your whole life plan on these type of things. Like, if I want to retire early, then you got to work a little extra now. And it's just that little bit of a balance. Hey, if you want to have 20-hour work weeks in 10 years, you got to go 60 hours right now. That's just how it's going to go in order for you to hit those goals.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I want a $50 million business, a $50 million a year business in 5 years. That's my goal. And it's achievable with the team I've built. It's just going to take a lot of work to get there. And that's government contracting work. That's direct placements. That's, my goal is to have, thousands of placements a year, to make it easier for companies to bring on veteran talent and to educate veterans and military spouses so that they make it's a better transition for them. And, but you've got to build the structure for that. You've got to, people don't realize everything that goes into building a business, and you've got to plan for that. You've got to continuously look at where you're at. You've got to bring successes. You've got to deal with failures and minimize failures so you don't lose too much money. And but if you set those aggressive goals, you got to be willing, you've got to be willing to dive into it. And I'd love to do another one of these guys with you like a year from now or 2 years from now and say like, okay, last year we said this, where are you? And just hit that, because I mean, you guys have made me think in different directions.
That's awesome.
We'll have to block out 3 hours next year around this time.
I don't know if anyone wants to listen to us for 3 hours, but yeah, maybe you guys, but yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you.
This is great, Mike. How can folks get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
My profile, you can just search Michael Quinn on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. If I can't answer every message. So I think that's the challenge now when you have such a large network. But, you can also reach out to any member of the HireMilitary team, especially if you're a transitioning service member, veteran, military spouse, looking for work. You can reach out to Lucy Robinson, Kate Wood, Brandy Walker, Andrea, Amanda. I mean, like the list goes on and on and on. Matt, like if you could just go to HireMilitary, look at our employees, you can reach out to any one of them. I will tell you that they are 100% committed to supporting our community. And if they can have help, they will.
Awesome. Man, this has been great, Mike, man. I really appreciate your time today and just the thought and everything else that you've shared with us and the audience. This has been a lot of fun, some great lessons in life and in business, man. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed this. So I appreciate what you both are doing to educate our community.
Awesome. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our guest, Michael Quinn, for joining us today, and our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. You can learn more about Tribe and Purpose at findyourpurpose.coach. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.